so weird.
That's
Oh,
really
it is
weird.
being, yeah, I don't understand.
Okay, it's setting up our meeting for the YouTube live.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, it just kept saying you don't have enough followers. I
I
was like,
know.
I'm well aware. Thank you, YouTube.
Okay.
Oh,
Still setting us up. There's a lot of setup happening.
okay.
Here we go. Oh, look, we did it, Daisy.
That was really something.
All right, friends, thank you for your patience so much. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so let me just, beautiful, come over here. Okay, cool. Let's,
That was really something.
it really was. And the problem is I have an echo.
Yeah, I have an echo too.
Okay, hold on a second. Just, this is really annoying. Okay, cool. Let me mute this. Okay. Hi. Hopefully everybody can hear us. Please let us know
Yeah.
if you cannot hear us. That would be excellent.
Yeah.
Because we had some technical difficulties this morning. Okay.
Yep.
Great. Hi, InfoPrism. Can you let us know if you can hear us okay? That would be excellent and amazing. All
Yeah, and
right.
we're not like weird. Yeah.
Right. So we have been wanting to have this conversation for a really long time, and we're really glad that we're here now talking about this concept of evil spirits and attachments because it comes up all the time. All the
Oh, yes, it does. Yes, it does.
time. I literally just got a message from somebody yesterday about this.
Okay. Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
so anyway, so we ended up talking about this, me and Daisy, at a few different layers. And
Right.
she and I are really on the same page about this
Oh, yeah.
concept and both come from also a little bit of different backgrounds, like enough of a
Right.
micro shift that allows us to speak at this from a couple different angles. Because Daisy's a medium,
Right.
I'm an Akashic Records practitioner. And I think that the biggest thing that comes up around this topic is fear for people.
100%. 100%.
People get
Yeah.
so scared. People come into the Akashic Records and it's like, but wait, what if somebody comes in and attacks me? What if somebody comes in and does this, that, or the other, or, I have these entities coming in and I have like curses and attachments and negative entities attached to me. And they feel like they don't want to go into this work or explore it because of that. So what
Yeah.
is your first response to this, Daisy, when it comes?
Oh, well, I have about 800, but
Yes, me too.
I have about 100. Well, okay. Well, first off, I think number one, I mean, it's a few things, but I would say number one is obviously a big unfortunate fueler of, like, I don't know if that's a word, but fuels to this type of concept to me is our media, right? You look at like these TV shows and movies even, right? But especially now it's gotten more and more popular, right? Especially I see it more so, I want to say, in actually like the paranormal investigation shows, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
you know um and so, I mean, and I had a lot of experience watching those pretty young, but especially I want to say like nowadays, even more, a lot of these shows, it's entertainment, really, right? It's like, if something scary doesn't happen or something dramatic doesn't happen, it's not good enough to air, basically, right? And I feel there's always this, it's so dramatized. It's really not really showing what's actually happening,
Mhm.
right? And there's just all this drama and all this stuff. It drives me crazy because,
Mhm.
unfortunately, I think for most people, that's their source of information, right?
Mhm.
That's where they're learning this stuff, So then they come to me and they're like, well, I watched this and that. And it's like, well, right. It's
Mhm.
not, that's not the best representation here of
Well,
what's
and I
going
have to
on.
be honest, one of the things that I run into the most that people come to me with is that they've been working with other practitioners or coaches who have
Yes.
said, well, the reason you're feeling this way is because you have a negative entity attached to you that needs to be
Yes.
released. And I'm kind of like, the reason this makes me insane
Mhm.
is there's a couple There's a couple of reasons this makes me
Oh
insane.
yeah.
One is that it is very, very clear that there's a number of people out there who fucking prey on this shit.
Oh,
Who
completely.
literally
Yeah.
they look for this stuff to
Yes.
to like it feels like making more money. And the thing is
Yeah.
that I know that they believe in it. Like I'm not saying that
Yeah.
they're consciously doing this. I really
No,
don't
no,
think that
totally.
they're not being malicious. They're not trying to hurt
Right.
people, but
Right.
like it's almost this like stuck in the negative and the heaviness and the
Yes.
what's it's still a what's wrong with you kind of
Right.
approach. And it
Mhm.
makes me crazy because I'm like, dude, I've been a therapist for 20 years. I have worked with wildly psychotic patients to the nth degree for
Yeah.
decades, right?
Right.
That have come in with all of these evil hallucinations and spirits and entities and things like that that are coming in every single fucking time. I don't care if their diagnosis is full-blown long-term schizophrenia. Every time that we turn towards these entities or these beings and soften and get into conversation with them and start to get curious about their presence and their intention and their purpose in presence with us, right? It
Yeah.
softens, it
Yeah.
releases. And
Yes.
because it just makes me insane
Yeah.
that like
Yeah.
it just feels like this fear-based,
Yeah.
it's just along the same fear-based line of let me attach to another train of fear.
100%. No, and I mean, again, like I could go on for like hours about all this, but like I totally agree with you, especially when it comes to the fear thing. I do think, unfortunately, there are also some people that do prey on people
Yeah.
consciously with this, right? And they're like, oh, you have this. If you pay me such and such amount,
Mhm.
I'll get rid of it, type of thing. And right, it's so much. And the one point that you had said, so much of this to me is two things. It's first off, it's perspective, right? That's a huge piece around this to me.
Yep.
And then it's also, realizing that quite often, I think we may, let's say we have an experience or someone tells us that we have a certain thing going on or whatever it might be, we, instead of being our own empowered investigator here and being curious and being, again, empowered in this situation, we immediately, I'm not, I'm just saying for most of these experiences, from my perspective, people immediately just go to fear. They just go to, they assume that's what that is. Oh my God, it's a demon. Oh my God, it's an evil thing. What am I going to do? I'm going to panic.
Yeah.
And I think people also don't realize how powerful their energy is,
Thank you.
right?
Thank you.
In building that belief. I mean, hello. I mean, you go into like the spiritual community, this whole thing, right? We create our reality. Absolutely. There's so much to that. And this is no different to me. Right?
Thank you. Thank you. Because this is the thing. It's like, listen, if you want to believe in evil spirits and attachments, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm not going to take that away from you. Like, listen, like you don't have to believe what we believe. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, guess what's more powerful than all of it and what created all of it? Source.
Yeah.
Source is the source point for everything in this freaking universe, right? So we are source. We are part and parcel of source. Source is us. We are source. As you take responsibility, and I feel like a lot of this is avoidance of responsibility for people because it's like, oh, I'm gonna cower in fear and da. I can't.
Right.
There's another reason why you're hiding from growth, right?
Totally.
That has nothing to do with quote unquote evil spirits and attachments, because at the end of the day, you get to be in the embodiment of source energy. That is light. Light lights up all darkness. I wrote a post on this yesterday, right? Like no matter how dark it is, light is going to illuminate it, right? So when you take responsibility for being in that source energy, and that's exactly it. Like you and I have talked about before, even especially with your mediumship when you first started with it too. It's like you have control over how this energy enters you. I mean, it's just like when I channeled Archangel Metatron for Vitality, like what, a month ago or something like that, or a few weeks ago. His energy is fucking huge, right? And feel really heavy and very intimidating and very like, oh, what's coming in, right? I can get into fear and get into interpretation of the fact that he's attacking me, that he is evil. But it's the fact is, energies of the universe are big. They're immense. They're intense. And our minds and nervous systems create meaning around them that we then latch onto, and it becomes an endless cycle.
Yeah, completely. No, and I think that's true for so many things. Because even, for example, like let's say you have a quote unquote haunting or type energy in a place that you live in, right? And you experience some stuff. If you immediately assume this is evil and bad, then you're just building that. And to me, I think it's very possible that if there's an energy in a space and then you're adding that to it, then you're going to get more of what you're adding to it, right?
Yeah.
From you, right? And I think the other thing too is I like what you're talking about too. It's like how it's around, when we avoid these things. Because I just want to give an example. Like for me, there's been a couple times, really only a couple times, where I've connected with a being or something, and I get a little bit jarred by their
Yeah.
appearance or whatever. And it's only really a minute where I'm kind of like, ooh, okay, this is new, a little scary-ish, but then I'll be like, okay, who is this? Right?
Yes.
And why are you connecting with me?
Yes.
And then they explain it to me. And then I'm not scared.
Because it's all energy for us.
Right.
Right? It's
Right.
all here to move us into our highest timeline. And it's very simple, similar to like I got sepsis. And it's like, guess what? That was a gift. That was a
Yeah.
huge freaking gift. I almost died several times. It was a huge gift, right?
Right.
And it's because it was immense energy coming in to shift my physical form, coming in to shift my perspective,
Right.
to shift
Right.
the way that I was approaching life, right? It came in to shift me. And so same thing, like when you get these energies that feel big, I get the same thing, Daisy, too, where I'm just
Right.
like, oh, what is this energy?
Right.
And then I
Right.
immediately go into, okay. It's just like we talk about with the healing journey in our relationships, like taking on this hat of curiosity and like being curious when somebody said something dickish to you, being like, what do you mean by that? So you're clarifying instead of reacting. Same thing with spiritual energies as they arrive in our field.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I even think of like, I don't know why I'm thinking of this, but like the 4 agreements where it says never make assumptions.
Oh, I
Right.
like that.
I don't know. That just popped in and I'm like, great, don't make assumptions. And I want to also say again, it's like, to me, so much of this is perspective. I think it's so common just from what I've seen in my community, just mediumship and everything. Like, I think so often people that believe in this stuff or people that have these experiences were raised typically like in a very religious setup, right?
Yeah.
Where they are told that that's what it is. So, I mean, I don't blame them for thinking that way, right? I'm lucky in the sense that, I think there was some fear in my family around things, but it was not so extreme, right? Where I was kind of more able to explore on my own and figure it out for myself. But that's what I see. I think it's so common. And I also think it's interesting because one of the experiences that I've had, like, I once went to a shaman for like a healing thing, and she told me that I had a witch attached to me and that she removed it or whatever. And the thing is that, I love shamanism. But I think what it is that in shamanism, it's not to me that what they're seeing isn't real, is fake. I think it's just interpretation. To me, it's like, okay, maybe that witch was just some stuff within myself, just some of my own stuff that just was needing to be released. And it's just interpretation.
I really
Right?
like that because it really softens it too, Daisy.
Yeah.
For the people who do come at it as like they're so rigidly attached to evil spirits and attachments, and it's like, okay, you're welcome to use whatever words you desire to use. And then us as the receiver also get to receive the energy and the sensation of what that brings forward in us rather than the labels and the words. Right. So we don't have to even get reactive with them around. I don't believe in that. Right. Like we don't have to like attack that either,
Not at all.
We get to actually just receive that as like, and this is actually what I was going to say too today around, I think the important part is to get in touch with the sensation in your body. Like when you talk about an evil spirit and attachment, or when somebody brings that forward for you and says, this is what's coming up, it's like, what is the sensation that arises in your body around however this is labeled? What is this energy sensation in the body? Let's get curious about it. Let's get intimate with it. Let's feel into its edges and its movement and whatever it's offering your physical form or your field.
100%. Yeah. Well, and right. And I think, that's what we touched on before, what you touched on before. But again, it's just the nature of avoidance, right? In
Yeah.
general. And that's where so much of all of this comes into. Because I actually just did a live, I don't know, I think it was like last week about, reasons why people might be afraid to go see a psychic medium and things that I've heard. And again, this reminds me of that because it's just, I've had people say, like, well, I don't go to psychics or mediums because I don't want to know. I don't want to know, and it's like, okay, well, why? Right?
Mhm.
Obviously, there's something around that maybe you want to take a step deeper here. Because, yeah, I get it. Oh, I don't want to know what's going to happen to me. But I think there's something more to it than that. Right?
Right. And it's like,
Like,
what are the narratives around
yeah.
that?
Right. Right.
What are the
Exactly.
narratives? What is the nervous system pattern around it? And it's just like when people come to me for the Akash and they're like, oh my gosh, if I swim out in the cosmos, anything could come get me, right? Like
Yeah.
anything. And that's just this, it's safety. It's people's fear. And guess what? Our souls don't think about safety, people. Like
No.
our
Yeah.
souls, this is a human construct,
Yeah.
right? Fear
Completely.
is a human construct. The concept
Yes.
of evil entities and attachments is a human construct, just like InfoPrism. Will, thank you for telling me what your name is, by the way. That's what Will said earlier. Nothing has meaning until we give it meaning. It just is.
Yeah.
In the
Right.
spiritual world, it just is. It's just
Correct.
energy. It's just beings. It just is. It's all from the same source, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, you got evil spirits and attachments? Take it up with source, dude.
Yeah.
Pick it
Right.
up with source. Like, sit down
Yeah.
and have a conversation with source. Get into relationship with source. That is your bigger, it's exactly what you said earlier, Daisy. Source of empowerment, of power, claiming
Yeah.
our power back. Like we've talked about with, you get to have discernment about what comes through spiritually,
Right. Right. Well,
right?
yes. Yeah. And that touches on just like my own journey, for me, like and that's something that I'm just really passionate about teaching people. Cause like, as you know, like early on when I opened up to mediumship and working this way,
Mhm.
I felt really overwhelmed. I felt like I had no control. I felt like I had, spirits talking to me all the time. Like I couldn't
Coming at
handle it.
you.
Right. And I like didn't want to go in public places. I didn't want to leave my apartment. Like it was really bad. And it took time, but I went to many different teachers kind of looking for answers through that period. And several of them at first did talk about like the protection thing and oh no, like I had someone tell me like I was gonna die if I didn't learn how to like control this. It's wild, right? And it's like, thank God, I'm just glad that I have a decent head on my shoulders. I mean,
Yeah.
sort of, but uh enough to enough to discern like, no, this is BS. Thank you.
Yeah.
But it took time. But now it's, where I'm at now, I'm able to really see this and teach other people where, you know, it's all good. Like you are in control. You've always been in control. And the thing is I think quite often when we open up to this stuff, we're excited. Part of us are excited and curious,
Yeah.
right? And it's like this. People will say, oh, well, I can't control it. I'm sorry, but there is, even if it's subconscious, there's part of you that's saying, well, yeah, you can kind of like connect with me. Like, that's okay. I'm curious, or, oh, I feel rude turning you away. Let me like talk to you, right? There's part of us that's actively looking for it. Okay.
Yeah.
And
It's
and
like,
to me, yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, it's reminding me of that book,
Yeah.
Existential Pink by Dr. Carolyn Elliott, right? Where she's like, our subconscious creates things, like our subconscious gets off on creating things that scare the shit out of us. Or like,
Totally.
the stuff in our
Yeah.
world. Right. Exactly. And it's just like validating, keeping you in this like safe, contained space. And
Yeah.
it's what you're saying. Like it's an avoidance piece. This is an invitation into you taking responsibility for anchoring your own freaking nervous system to hold the enormity of the energies that are coming through. And that's a project. It can be a
It
project.
is.
Don't get me
Right.
wrong, which is why you and I have sought support. Other people
Right.
seek support in us because we are human. Our souls decided to be human. We don't want to, we don't want to bypass that, right? Like we don't want to bypass
Yeah.
that human piece. So it's like, okay, let yourself be held, tether and anchor your nervous system in whatever way you desire so that you can open to the truth that is trying to come through you.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing that people forget, and this is something that I teach all the time, is right, like it's a relationship between you and spiritual energy.
Yeah.
And, you know, you just have to tell them what you want. And I think sometimes people don't realize that they can say, hey, you know, I don't like receiving in this way. Do it this way.
Yep.
They'll do it. They always listen because they don't care. They just want to get their message across. So they'll do whatever it is that, you know, oh, okay, Daisy wants to do such and such, so we'll do that. Like they want to work with you. It's not like um, you know, because I like it. One of my mentor says this, where it's like, you know, it's a relationship. It's not I'm serving the spirit world. Like I have to just follow what they're wanting to do, right? It's no, it's a relationship.
I say this all the time.
Yeah.
And what you're bringing in is boundaries, right? Like you're bringing in, like, you get to have boundaries with the spirit world, just like you have in this world, right? And I say this all the time. It doesn't mean that when spirit says things to you, it's like spirit says jump and you say how high. You're co-creation, because the fact is your soul also chose to be in this human body and designed your energetic blueprint the way that it is for a reason. Yeah. And we get to take that information and place it on the table with all the other shit that we have, information from our body, from our nervous systems, from outside of us, and put it together. Gabby's asking, what do you guys think about religious fear around the devil? And I know she was talking about this in the membership as well, around the closer that she gets to her relationship with God, her relationship with source, the more this feeling of the devil keeps coming up for her. And it's interesting because I was reading something the other day, somebody posted about how come when I get closer to my soul, my ego gets louder. And that's really what it is. That's really what it is. It's that resistance and it's just going to come forward in the form of whatever's going to get your attention and scare the shit out of you the most. Right.
Yeah. Well, right. And again, like I even think about, you know, the devil card, like in the tarot deck. Really, the true interpretation of that card is like our shadow side, our, you know, addictions, our things that tempt us, things like that, right? But it's not like it's not bad, you know, it's just part of who we are, right? But I think it's so true that when we open our consciousness more, when we dive into this work, we become more aware of these things, right? And it can be uncomfortable and it can feel like, oh no, like there's something wrong, right? But just like you just gotta, like, it's a process, right? You're like working through it. And you know, and I think the other thing too is, you know, because that's another piece around all of this, which I did touch on, but it's just religion and all of that stuff, right? These things were created to control people, you know, really they were. And also to find power, you know, because I unfortunately have even experienced that personally, where I've seen other practitioners or people that do this work, you know, it's totally just an ego trip for them. Like that they have this otherworldly power, you know, and you need them to like figure things out and whatever. Like I've had that happen. And you know, I think that's number one, like that I try to remind people here. It's like, I think it's so easy in this world to start to like act like, oh, like we're in a movie, like I'm like a superhero, you know, or I'm like a, you know, which like, yes, it's great to like, it can feel that way because it is wild, like talking to dead people, it's crazy, right? But you know, I'm not like a supernatural being that's better than anyone else. I'm still a human. We're still people. We're human beings. Like it doesn't need to become this like massive crazy thing, you know, and nobody is I think that's what I mean. It's like I just think that some people really latch onto that as like an ego trip, that they're like this, you know, superhuman being that can like, you know, bring spirits to the light. Oh, that's a whole other thing. I can go on forever about this, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that it's the sensationality of it that you were talking about earlier. And I think it's almost like, you know, the sensationality of anything that we experience in this world. You know, it's like getting on a roller coaster to jump onto this. And it's like, okay, that's thrilling and it's scary, but it's also very exhilarating and it's bringing this adrenaline rush. And when you really think about it, this is all about being in responsibility for deepening intimacy in your relationship with source and the relationship with your soul, because what you'll realize when you put all of this other shit to bed, or at least put it on the side table for a period of time and take responsibility for immersing in that relationship, the energy there is deeply loving and soothing and activating in a very gentle, faithful, trusting way where source is deeply trusting of us and moving us forward in this very gentle is the best word, soft way forward. And I think that sometimes this sensationality can also come from, well, it's got to blow up in this way in order for me to get to this. And it's like, okay, can we just like calm the process down? Like it doesn't need to feel like this. And that being said, I will admit, like in my own journey, I had my own avoidance of deepening this relationship with source. It was like, there was one point in my relationship with the Akashic Records and with the universe that I got the message of you're hiding, like you're avoiding a more powerful relationship because you're kind of like floating out here in the cosmos and it feels nice and good and yummy. But when I went up and sat face to face with source, I was like, holy shit. That's when my religious stuff came up because I was like, I need to bow in reverence. I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough. I'm inadequate. Right. And it was just like, I to be here in the presence of source. And I think that we don't even recognize that that's in us until we actually go into that relationship, into that connection and that conversation. And it's just like, holy shit, am I humbled right now? You know, but it's being with that and allowing the edges to kind of move around it and open and show you what's there for you.
Yeah, exactly. And there's, again, so many other things. Another thing around it too is around trust, right? Trust of just the universe. Trust that things are the way they're meant to be. Like, because I even look at that around the concept, which kind of goes under this umbrella. The concept where people talk about, oh, I help lost souls go to the light, you know, and that drives me crazy. I'm sorry. It's like, you know, and like, again, I think that there are times where people really genuinely feel that that's what they're doing. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think it's interpretation. And to me, I don't, you know, I trust the process of birth, right? Same thing. Maybe some things intervene to help you get along, but you always make it on the other side. Same thing to me with spirit. You know, it's, why wouldn't we trust that? It's just because we don't see it, right? But we see it, you know, we see the process of birth and we trust it, you know?
It's so true because and that's why, and I've shifted this enormously for myself with just expanding my own channeling. Just the higher frequency beings coming in. It's shifting this concept of like evil and heaviness into enormity. Right? It's just an enormity of energy. It's actually an immense level of love, of insight, inspiration, transformation. And when it's bigger and it's coming through as an energy that doesn't express in human language, it expresses through sensation and through symbolism and movement, right? Our minds and nervous systems, when we have sensation, I get a pain. What is that pain? I immediately want to understand, what is that pain? What does that mean? Where is that coming from? What do I need to do with it? Instead, it's like when sensation comes in, just letting sensation be sensation. Like Gabby says, trust that the universe is good. The universe is. The universe just is. The universe is moving us. And that's where that trust is that you're talking about. Trust that the universe is moving us as we are meant to be moved.
And I mean, this touches on another whole thing too, which is like, you know, I've heard someone say, what was it? Like, you know, how they were just saying, it drives me crazy how, you know, when some people say they only believe in love and light. And I think it's impossible. Like, you can't just believe in love and light and ignore, you know, not believe in the dark. And I agree. I do agree with that. But I think it's more, I do believe in dark and light. Totally. Yes, there's duality in the world. You need it, you know, but it's more complicated than that. It's so much more complicated than that. And there's more to it than that too, where, you know, another thing that I know we've talked about as well is the idea that, you know, hey, I don't know for sure, but maybe the concept that, you know, the human world is really hell and spirit world is not, you know, right? Because I mean, we don't want to deny there's horrible things that happen in the world, horrible things, you know, but again, I just think it's so much more complex than we could ever understand, but
I
we want to
totally
give meaning to it. We want someone to blame, right? Of course we do. Of course we do, right? Because it's incomprehensible, some of the things that happen,
agree.
But we don't, where there's no way for us to fully know, right?
Yeah, no, and I think that's a piece, that's the trust piece as well. And it's a surrender
Yeah.
around, because I always describe duality as like, yeah, first of all, it's source experiencing itself, right? Being able
Yeah.
to give that to us. But I think about duality, and I always describe it this way, like the poles of a battery. You have a
Right.
positive and you have the negative poles of the battery.
Mhm.
Positive end of the battery is not any better than the negative pole of the battery.
Mhm.
They're equally magnetic. In fact, they assist each other with
Right. They need each other.
generating electricity, with
Right.
generating a frequency, a vibration, a movement of energy.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like it's in that rub. This happens all the time in the universe. That's how new stars are formed. Shit's colliding all the time out there that we don't
Yeah.
even know and see. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so
Right.
it's like it's not labeling that as good or bad. Like Will says, white, black, and many shades of gray in between. Absolutely.
Right. Right. Like I know.
Exactly.
And I think that's again like what we were saying. It's that extremist view, and that will get you into trouble in anything, not just this
Yeah.
type of situation. I look at that even as like being a recovering addict, that's very much the same thing. This or that, right? Or it's like these
Mhm.
extremes, in thinking, right? That I think we deal with in many aspects of life.
Yeah.
And again, I think if people can relate to that way of thinking or that way of living in whatever it might be, right?
Mhm.
It's not so comfortable, right?
Mhm.
It
Yeah.
provides tension,
Yeah. And it's like the other day when I wasn't feeling well and I just laid down in deep gratitude.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it took me time to get to that place. Don't get me wrong, for those of you who knew
Totally.
my journey with how sick I was, but it's like, you know, I know something's moving here. I know something's at work here. I know source is taking care of me,
Yeah.
and so it doesn't mean that I'm trying to escape what I'm in
Yeah.
necessarily. I'm receiving and allowing what I'm in, knowing that, and not meaning that I'm not uncomfortable and cranky, right? But
Hmm.
like,
Right.
but I'm
Right.
also grateful. Like, it doesn't mean
Yeah.
that I'm just sitting there in love and light, but like, you get to hold both. Like, it doesn't mean you don't get to feel that polarity or that duality that shows up. We're not dismissing it. We're not rejecting that part of what our soul chose when it entered the human. But,
Yeah.
we also get to hold the faith in addition. And you and I have talked about that a lot recently with just people in our
Yes.
lives, that it's like,
Yeah.
we recognize the things that they're going through and the things that might make them feel ugh.
Right.
But it's like being able to be in that and still hold the faith and allow the faith to not waver while you're in
Right.
that space.
Yeah. It feels a lot better. It really does when you
Mhm.
can get there. I know it's a process, but it's so funny. I even just had an experience, I think it was yesterday. I don't know. Because I had recently had a few, ups and downs with my health, and I was getting really, brought up a lot of anger, a lot of frustration, right? Or whatever. And it was weird. I mean, I had this moment of clarity, I think yesterday, and I was like, I am actually I have even more clarity around how grateful I am for this
Mhm.
experience, because it's forced me
Mm.
to accept myself at a level that I never did.
Yes, I completely
Yeah.
agree with you. I was even saying to somebody last night, because I've had this little bug for a few days, and
Right.
last night I wasn't feeling well, and it was just so funny because it comes in waves, right? Like
Yeah.
sometimes when you have these little bugs, it comes in waves. As I came in the waves, I was feeling so crappy, and I just laid down, and like all these thoughts came up, and I was so separated from them, and it
Right.
was just like, I hate myself. Yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
sitting there and I'm just
Right.
sitting there smiling, like
Yeah.
witnessing what was releasing as if I was watching it. And I
Yeah.
was just sitting there like, this is awesome. Like, whatever
Yeah.
you are shedding from me right now, bring it. Right?
Right.
Like,
Right.
bring it, because it's just these fractals that we don't necessarily know that we still carry energetically. And as they
Yeah.
come up, it's just like, hey, thank you so much for having your own course, for feeling open and free enough to
Yeah.
move in your own way and to open more space for whatever's coming.
Yeah, exactly. No, and it's so funny because literally like the same thing happened to me. Because last week I like had like a lot of ups and downs, and like I was like a disaster, like emotionally, with the moon. And then like
Yeah.
I had all these big things come up that were really exciting and like expanding for me. And I was like, yes, like I love this. It's great, and I was like really into it and feeling it. And then, I felt really sick on Friday. And then out of nowhere, I was getting all these old thoughts like, I want to be a medium? Do I really want to do this? Is this really am I good enough to do this? I can't do this. I don't want to do this. And then I remember it and I was able to look at it and I was like, oh, right. We know we're not going to listen to these things when we physically feel this way.
Mhm.
Like, duh.
It's just a,
Right.
and it's funny because Gabby says you're a little rebel teenager, which is exactly what
Yeah.
I was thinking last night.
Yeah.
It's just your body tantruming.
Right.
And it's
Right.
like we all get to tantrum, right? We all
Yeah.
get to tantrum. Our
Yeah.
relationships tantrum. Like
Hmm.
anywhere there's energy, there's tantrums. You see it in
Yeah.
freaking birds as they're trying to get to the bird feeder. Like everybody's
Yeah.
tantruming. So it's like just give it space to tantrum it out
Yeah. Yeah.
and move on and don't create meaning and hold
Right.
on to it. Like, what does that mean? What
Exactly.
about that person? And
Right.
you
Attaching the
know.
meaning to it, or oh no, this means that I'm off track, or whatever it means. No,
Mhm.
no. Like it literally, like I had that thought and I was like, oh yeah, cool, we're good. And then I moved on. And after that, I felt great. And I was like, wow, I actually
Wow.
feel that's when, like yesterday, that's when I had that moment where I was like, wow, I feel an even deeper sense of this acceptance of
Mhm.
like peace. And like, I don't need to force. I don't need to I'm good. I don't need, I think so much of my illness, like it helped me really release my perfectionism in so many ways, right? And heal
Well,
that.
and like I mean, bringing it full circle here from where we
Yeah.
started,
Yeah.
releasing attachments to
Yeah. So
how our
great.
body feels, to how our
Yes.
emotions are,
Or
to what
whatever. Yeah.
success looks like,
Hmm.
to, you know what I mean? Like all the things. And I think that when we're talking about attachments,
Yeah.
like you said earlier, Daisy, we have no fucking clue about what a lot of this stuff is, like what these attachments are. And so we label them as demons or evil spirits and all this stuff.
Right.
But it's like,
Mhm.
there's attachments. All if we just talk about, and I say this on so many lives, that book, Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty, where he says the
Yeah.
biggest plight of being human is attachment. We have
Yeah.
so many attachments all
Right.
over the place that we're learning about all the time. And it's like if we can simplify it to that, to
Yeah.
connecting to our sensation, to relationship with our guides, with source, with spirit, whatever your higher power is, and
Right.
we allow the movement of this energy, and instead of being in gripping, which is what attachment
Yeah.
is around anything, we're going to lighten the field, we're
Yeah.
going to lighten the experience. And like Will said, like if it's love, embrace it. If it's fear, ignore it. It's like
Right.
this isn't truth. Fear is not truth. It can
No.
be a gateway into our truth if we don't avoid and dismiss and reject it, and we just allow the energy to move,
Right.
right?
Right.
But yeah, is there anything else you want to share before we close
Mm.
this up? Just because we like to keep this at a level that's
I know.
digestible for replayers.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I feel like, I mean, we could probably
Do
do
this.
more of these.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, no, I mean, I feel like we really touched on everything
Yeah.
that I mean, I'm looking at my little notes that I had written down. Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's just really true. It's just, well, one of the things I was going to say, and it's something that I often share with other people too, is like, I've been doing this for 7 years now. And if there was an issue of like being worried about all this stuff or being possessed or whatever, I mean, I'd be fine.
Yeah.
And like, I'm fine. Like, I'm fine. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't, it's to me, it's like, I don't want to dismiss anyone's experiences or whatever it may happen. Again, I would, invite you to maybe look deeper into it, what it
Yeah.
could be, maybe after listening to this
Get
conversation, right?
curious about it.
Right. I would never dismiss anyone else's experience because just based off everything we were saying. But, I just want to say in my experience also, like I've never encountered something like that
Yeah.
that makes me feel this is evil. This is terrible. Never. I've never experienced that. But I also don't intentionally look for it too. right?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I think that I would say that I've experienced it kind of indirectly through a lot of
Sure.
psychotic patients, right? Like
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
lot of my clients who are deeply, deeply in fear. Like
Yeah.
I can feel
Yeah.
it, and I can feel the energy that is in the room that they're talking about. Like I have seen the face of a demon that my
Yes.
client has described. Like I have been face to face with that, and I think that's the piece, is being in that sovereignty and responsibility and trust of being able to turn toward it. And that may be a space where you desire to be held by someone while you do that work, so
Right.
that you do feel safe enough to do it. But I think that, but I think it's this conversation is a catalyst for curiosity
Yeah.
around what's coming forward for you, and also understanding that none of us, including us, really know. We can only speak from
Right.
our experience and our sensation, and our continually deepened relationship with source and our higher power. And so everybody has their own responsibility, if they desire to execute it, to define and feel into their own relationship with that, and what that feels like for them.
Exactly. I love that. No, and also just how, again, if you encounter a person in this field and they say they know it without a doubt, that's how this is. This is how everything works. Bye. I'm
Mhm.
sorry. I'm sorry. You're not dead. And again,
Mhm.
like I would never say that. I'm here. I'm alive. Like I
Mhm.
can, to me, what I experience in the sessions that I do and the work that I do, it is the tiniest little piece that I thankfully gratefully am able to have a window into. But that's
Yes,
it. That's it. And it's also through a human body filter. I have no idea what that does to that, right? So
100%.
yeah, right. So just keep that in mind, and I think we'll be back. We'll
Yeah, we'll
be
be back,
back.
because now what's
Yeah,
coming up is like NDEs, and
right.
thinking about like Anita Morjani, and I'm like, she wrote all about this too, and she's not talking about blah, blah, blah. Okay,
Yeah.
so hold up, we will do this again. Thank you guys so much for being here and being so participatory, is I guess a
Yeah,
good word, being present
sure. Yeah.
in this conversation. And I love this community on my YouTube. So thank you for being here. If you're on the replay, let us know your thoughts, share your heart with us, and we'll be back. Thanks for being here,
Yeah.
Daisy.
Bye. Thanks.
All right, bye, everybody.